Pathfinders of the Dark. Book 1. The Battle of Mars. Episode 3. Chapter 5. The Moon Without a Name. They never told him the name of the moon. He worked out later that this was deliberate, that a pathfinder who broke under questioning could not give away a place he had never been told the name of. But at the time it only added to the sense that he had fallen off the edge of the ordinary world. The cutter docked at a facility carved into airless rock, all gray corridors and low ceilings and the constant dry hum of recyclers, and from the first hour the place felt less like a base than like a hospital that had given up pretending its patients would all walk out. There were 11 of them in his intake, 11 pulled from working towns and odd corners across 2 planets and a dozen habitats. Every one of them carrying the same strangeness Jax had spent his life hiding. He could tell at a glance. They all had the look, the slight half-second lag in the eyes, the way they flinched at doors a beat early and then pretended they had not. For the first time in his life, Jax was in a room full of people who saw the front edge of the world the way he did, and the strangest part was how little comfort it was. They were not a brotherhood. They were a set of replacement parts, and they all knew it. The instructors were fleet, mostly, hard and tired and careful with the candidates, the way you are careful with something expensive and fragile. But the one who mattered was not fleet. He was a pathfinder, the only living one Jax met in those first weeks, and his name was Sable. Sable was perhaps 50 and looked 70. His left hand had a tremor he did not bother to hide. There was a fine tracery of burst vessels across the whites of his eyes, and when he spoke for too long, his nose would begin, very gently, to bleed, and he would touch it with the back of his wrist without breaking sentence, the way another man might brush away a fly. He had been a pathfinder for 9 years, since the quiet research days before the war had a name, which Jax would learn was almost unheard of, and the cost of those 9 years was written on every inch of him. Looking at Sable was like being handed a photograph of your own future and told, this is where the road goes, all of it, no exceptions. Sable gathered the 11 of them in a bare room on the second day and told them the truth, which Jax came to understand was the thing that set him apart from the fleet instructors. The fleet lied to keep you steady. Sable did not. You have all spent your lives, he said, being the only one, the one who knew, the one who caught the thing before it fell, or did not catch it, and had to live with the difference. He let that land. A few of them flinched. Jax kept his face still and felt the gate, the rain and the brake rise up in him anyway. You are not the only one anymore. You are 11. And that is more of you in one room than the program has gathered in 2 years. And I will tell you now what no one in a uniform will say to your face. Most of you are going to wash out. Some of you are going to die in this building. Not in the war. Here. In a chair, with the rest of us watching. And we will not be able to stop it. No one spoke. Somewhere a recycler ticked over. I am not telling you this to frighten you, Sable said. I am telling you because the ones who survive are the ones who understand from the first day exactly what they are made of and exactly what it costs to spend it. You carry a thing the enemy is afraid of. I will explain why later when you have earned the right to believe it. For now, learn this. He looked at each of them in turn, and his ruined eyes were very steady. The gift does not make you special. The gift is just sight. What you do with the sight is the only thing that has ever mattered, and it is the only thing this place can teach you, and it is the only thing that will keep you alive long enough to be of use. That night, in the narrow bunk they gave him, Jax lay awake and listened to 10 strangers breathe and thought about his father saying, "Keep it close," and about a man named Sable who had spent 9 years not keeping it close, and what it had done to him. He met Cass over a ration tray the next morning. She was small and quick, and had a way of saying the worst possible thing at the best possible moment, and she dropped into the seat across from him, uninvited, and studied him with open interest. "You're the mechanic," she said. "Drive tech, off some braking yard on Earth. Word gets around. Everybody here was something before they got grabbed." She stuck out a hand. "Cass, I fixed nets on a fishing rig off one of the Jovian Habs, which means I am also, technically, a mechanic, which means you and I are the only two people in this intake who have ever done an honest day's work. The rest are students and clerks. We should stick together on principle." Jax found himself almost smiling, which he had not done since the cutter. "Jax." "I know. The mechanic." She said it like a title and grinned, and it stuck. Within a week, the whole intake was calling him that, and he never quite shook it. And years later, a crew on a ship called the Vigilant Guardian would use the same word with something close to reverence and never know it had started as a fishing rig welder's joke over a bad breakfast. He did not know yet that he would watch Cass washed out and sent away, or that of the 11 who sat in that bare room, only a handful would ever wear the lens in the field. He only knew that the keeping close was over, and that for the first time since a yard gate, he was not the only one. Chapter 6. The Chair. They called it the chair, though it was more than that. A reclined seat in a shielded room wired to more instruments than Jax could name, with a soft cradle for the head and a slot at the temple where the lens locked into place. The lens itself was smaller than he expected, a curved sliver of something that was not quite metal and not quite tissue, warm to the touch, faintly wrong under the fingers the way a fingernail is wrong when it has come away from the bed. Sable told them what it was on the morning of the first sink, because he told them everything. "It came out of one of them," he said, holding it up so the 11 of them could see. "We brought a coordinating unit down nearly whole, early in the war, and the people who study such things found tissue in it that does what you do, only better, and built this. It is a piece of the enemy. When you put it on, you are borrowing a thread of the sense their whole swarm shares. It will open the front edge of the world wider than you have ever managed on your own, and it will hold it open, and that is the gift and the trap both. Your whole life you have caught glimpses and paid for them. This will let you stare, and staring, for us, is what costs." Jax went forth. The first 3 came back changed in small ways, pale, shaking, one of them weeping without seeming to notice. Then they cleaned the cradle and called the mechanic, and Cass caught his sleeve as he passed and said quietly, none of the joke left in her, "Don't be a hero in there. Just look and come back." He nodded and did not tell her that looking was the part he had spent 11 years refusing to do. They locked the lens against his temple, and it was nothing, and then it was everything. His whole life, the front edge of the world had been a thing he glimpsed through cloth. The lens took the cloth away. The next few seconds opened in front of him not as a flicker but as a vast branching structure, luminous and total, every possible unfolding of the room and the instruments and his own heartbeat laid out at once, like the roots of some enormous tree, and he understood in an instant of vertigo that this was what the enemy lived inside. All of them, all the time, this whole impossible breadth. It was beautiful. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen, and it was trying to kill him, because a single human mind was not built to hold it. He felt the pressure come up behind his eyes the way it always had, only there was no ceiling on it now, no point at which the glimpse ended and the world snapped back. He could go as deep as he dared. And here was the thing the screen had detected, the thing his whole town had called luck. He did not just see the branching. He chose. He reached into that luminous structure and he followed one thread down and down, far past the shallow, obvious surface, deeper than the instruments had ever recorded a candidate reach. And at the bottom of it he found a single, improbable path, and he held it. and made it the one that was true. When they brought him up, his nose was bleeding and his hands would not stop shaking, and Sable was looking at him with an expression Jax had not seen on him before. Not the careful patience he gave, talked the others. Something closer to grief. "How deep did you go?" Sable asked quietly. "I don't know," Jax said. "All the way down. Until there was only one." Sable was silent for a long moment. Then he said, almost to himself, "I have not been able to go all the way down in 6 years." And he turned away and did not explain, and Jax was left with the cold understanding that he had done, on his first day, something the only living veteran could no longer do. It was Beck who died. He was the quiet one, intense, a clerk from one of the pilgrim ships who never said 3 words where none would do, and he went into the chair on the 2nd week of sinks and reached too far. Jax was in the observation room. He saw the readings climb and then stop climbing, and he saw the instructors move fast and then stop moving fast, and through the glass he watched Beck's face go slack in the cradle with the lens still warm at his temple, and he did not come back up. There was no struggle. That was the part that stayed with Jax. Beck simply went down into the branching and chose to keep going, down past the place where a human mind can still find its way back, and somewhere in that beautiful, luminous depth he lost the thread that led home. They cleaned the cradle. Within the hour, they were calling the next candidate. That night, Cass sat with Jax in the gray corridor outside the bunk room, both of them too hollowed out to sleep, and she said, "He wasn't even trying to be a hero. He just wanted to see how deep it went." She wiped her face roughly. "How deep does it go, mechanic? You went deeper than him. You came back. How?" Jax thought about the gate and his father and 11 years of refusing to look. "Because I already know it doesn't save everybody," he said. "He went down looking for the bottom. I went down looking for the one path I could still walk. You don't get lost if you're holding on to something you mean to do." Cass looked at him a long time. "That's the most frightening, healthy thing I've ever heard anybody say," she said. But she stopped crying. Episode 4 arrives next week. The Empty Chairs.